Hey guys, tonight we are about to step back in time and find ourselves wandering the streets of Agra during the Mughal Empire's heyday. Imagine the sun cascading down over the Yamuna River, casting a golden hue over the city, as the grandeur of the Mughal capital is slowly unveiled. It's a place where history whispers through the wind and the complexities of a mighty empire unfold. But brace yourself, because the glamour of this mesmerizing era comes with its own set of challenges. You probably won't survive this. Intrigue, opulence, and political minefields abound, and only the astute manage to thrive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the first light of dawn breaks, Agra awakens with a symphony of sounds that blend the cooing of pigeons with the distant echo of morning prayers. The scent of marigold and sandalwood hangs in the air, and warm hues begin to sparkle off the white marble of the Taj Mahal, a feature so emblematic that it's easy to forget it was once merely part of the city's bustling backdrop. Ever imagine tipping your hat to this wonder before heading off to your day's duties? Welcome to Mughal Agra. Unlike today's wristwatches ticking away relentlessly, time in the Mughal era flows with a certain grace, determined by the sun's path and the rooster's crow. As a mouse darts across a dusty path just ahead, reality sets in. It's a city of contrasts, steeped in rich tradition yet alive with progress and innovation. From ornate domes peeking through lush gardens to craftsmen opening shop to perfect intricate inlays, everything about Agra suggests a city that's a living masterpiece of its own making. Historians still argue whether the true beauty of such a place lay in its edifices or the stories of ambition and craft that built them, but one thing is certain: complexity reigns supreme. The streets begin to buzz, not with the honking chaos of today's rush hour, but with a kind of purposeful harmony. Merchants set up stalls draped in vibrant textiles, city workers sweep the streets, and animals trot alongside like clockwork. Picture yourself standing there, part of this ancient current. But don't get too engrossed. Hovering over each scene is the ever-watchful eye of the Mughal administration. Tax collectors and guards patrol the precincts, reminding one and all that while Agra is a city of beauty, it's also one of order, sometimes with a heavy hand. Now, let's not forget to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the camel, since we're in Mughal territory. Travel back in time, even hypothetically, and you'll find that blending seamlessly into this world requires not just a change in attire but in mindset. You're no longer compelled by the incessant demands of a screen. Instead, you're at the mercy of emperors, monarchs of vast territories whose morning whims could affect even the smallest alleyway routine. Such is life here, an intricate web of duties and obligations that demands dexterity worthy of a court jester and the foresight of a chess grandmaster. After all, while elephants roam the emperor's parade grounds, it's the human elements of greed, loyalty, and ambition that truly make or break you. Speaking of elements, temperature check, folks. Already by dawn, the Indian sun begins to assert itself with a kind of gentle intensity. You wipe your brow, grateful for the shade a nearby tree provides, and perhaps regret the layers of fabric historically appropriate but sweat-inducing. Remember, the Mughal court scene you're about to enter could be as physically demanding as an obstacle course. Stamina and strategic hydration go a long way, especially when your day might involve an unexpected jaunt to petition some noble in a secretive corner of this vast cityscape. It's all part of surviving Agra's allure. Navigating through the streets, the city unfurls in front of you like a regal carpet stretching toward the horizon. Buildings covered in intricate latticework and lush gardens showcase a city where power and aesthetics meet at every corner. There's a quirky tidbit for you. One of the emperor's preferred methods to impress foreign dignitaries was to parade a procession of elephants adorned with the empire's finest jewels. Not your average introductory handshake, that's for sure. It's in the little details, the tiny peculiarities, that the city's essence lies. There's a blend of cultural vivacity beneath the order. Now, as you glide through Agra's ambience, feeling both the dust underfoot and the weight of centuries on your shoulders, you'd do well to remember, each corner you turn, every street you survey might have once played host to tales of grandeur, or might still be telling them. With the sun now lifting skyward, casting long shadows behind you, the next page of Agra's story is ready to be turned. But tread with caution. In a city so enchanted, So intricately woven into the fabric of Mughal majesty, one wrong step can easily lead you down a path from which there's no easy return. And so you press on, through the sights and sounds of dawn, gradually making your way toward where the heart of the city pulses strongest, the Mughal court. It is poised on the brink of splendor, eager to reveal, or conceal, its secrets. Could you unravel them? Or perhaps become yet another shadow in Agra's enthralling tale? As you step through the grand gates of the Mughal court in Agra, you're instantly engulfed by an ambience that can't quite decide whether it wants to impress you or intimidate you, much like a cat that purrs while eyeing a toothsome bird. Inhaling deeply, the air is thick with the mingling scents of flowering gardens and the faint, musky scent of sandalwood. A gentle breeze teases your senses, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees as if suggesting secrets of historic importance. This is where the Mughals orchestrated their symphony of rule, a place teetering between artfully crafted beauty and strategically engineered chaos. Standing at these gates, towering and imposing like the dynasty itself, you're transported to a time when intellect met opulence on an everyday basis. Imagine yourself a fly on the wall, or rather, a jester at court because, let's be honest, your main skill here might be a comedic detachment in observing the drama, soaking in the radiant colors and the intense energy of the scene before you. The court is abuzz with vibrant individuals moving in calculated dances of power and influence, their every gesture ripe with unspoken commentary. The strong sun reflects off the intricately laid mosaics underfoot, a blinding reminder of the empire's grandeur and, quite possibly, a call for more effective sunglasses. Historians still argue whether the tiled pathways were designed intentionally to dazzle, or simply to make sure everyone walking them looked a bit silly squinting or tripping over the intricate patterns. Either way, it draws the eye and demands respect for both its complexity and beauty, a fine metaphor for the empire itself. Immediately, your attention is snagged by the opulent fashions on display. Not just random pieces of clothing, the garments swirl around their owners in clouds of silk and brocade, demanding attention and admiration in a distinctly regal fashion. A passing noble in a robe embroidered with gold thread might seem a beacon of effortless elegance, but don't be fooled. Imagine waking up every day knowing you must dress like a world-class exhibit. And you thought choosing your socks this morning was challenging. Beyond the sartorial splendor lies an even more pressing realization, the political ballet being quietly executed all around you. Courtiers and officials engage in a subtle warfare of words and glances, where a single misplaced comment could mean social banishment or, worse, invitation to an impossibly long poetry recital. Decisions of critical diplomatic importance occur here, often disguised by trivial conversations about the weather or the relative merits of mango varieties. The grandiosity of the environment is designed not just to impress but to throw you off guard, reminding you that unless you're as sharp as these hypervigilant courtiers, you might just find yourself yesterday's news faster than you can say humble pie. A quirky tidbit not to be missed in this overflowing cornucopia of grandeur, rumor has it, or at least the slightly more dramatic storytellers allege, that one of the court's astrologers, with an air of sage wisdom, had once declared that consuming particular recipes of desserts could affect political fortunes. This may have been their sly way of getting the emperor to sponsor new confections, or perhaps a precursor to our modern understanding of comfort eating and its very real impact on decision-making capabilities. Not all observers agreed despite the evidence of a courtesan's jubilant notes describing the tried and proven sweetmeat solution to dull political gatherings. Some historians assert they made all this up while enjoying a hearty laugh. It's an open debate, serving as a gentle reminder that even ancient historians might not resist the occasional jibe or exaggeration, especially when a delicious story is at stake. As you stand there, the notion begins to dawn on you that surviving this palace dynamic requires a skill set akin to a modern-day politician, actor, and chess master combined. Each person presents a polished facade, a testament to years spent perfecting the art of not appearing to panic when encountering rivals or, worse, an unexpected hiccup in their carefully executed plans. But here, at the very heart of Mughal authority, it's not just the hushed politicking that grabs your attention. The real magic is in the harmony of contradictions, the lavish indulgence beside disciplined austerity, valor melded with deception, and whispers of conspiracy beneath gilded proclamations of order. And as you navigate the grandeur, clutching tightly to your initial amazement like a fragile keepsake, remember that beneath each silk robe and jeweled turban lies more than just the sum of traditions past but the living heartbeat of a vibrant, dynamic society still captivating the world today. Every step you take echoes the clatter of history, like the court musicians endlessly tuning their instruments, producing sounds that resonate with both harmony and dissonance. Perhaps the eternal allure of the Mughal court, much like the secret to good comedy, lies in impeccable timing and a keen ability to navigate just enough chaos to keep everyone guessing. As you wander into the vibrant tapestry of the Mughal court, eyes are immediately drawn to the dazzling array of garments that unfurl like flowers in full bloom. The finest silks ripple like an undulating breeze, each thread a shimmering whisper of opulence and artistry. You quickly realize that choosing the right attire is more than just a fashion statement. It's a complex social dance where one false move could mean sticking out like a sore thumb among a royal garden of impeccably dressed peacocks. Standing at the edge of the cloth bazaar, you're enveloped in a kaleidoscope of sensations. The textures invite your fingers to trace their intricate patterns, while vibrant colors swirl around you in dizzying hues. The yellows whisper the glow of the Agra sunrise, deep reds murmur tales of love and war, and blues capture the serene flows of the Yamuna River itself. Silk merchants, dressed in equally resplendent attire, expound on the virtues of their wares, promising that each piece is a rare find, procured from distant lands. It's like a historical version of an infomercial, except instead of a pocket fisherman, you might be convinced to purchase enough fabric to clothe an army. Historians still argue whether these markets were more about economics or social posturing. Was the real purpose to intimidate lesser merchants with the wealth on display, or was it about securing rare textures and patterns that could shout louder than words at a royal gathering? Whatever the answer, you find yourself wondering how many gold coins you need to spend to achieve social invisibility while simultaneously standing out for all the right reasons. In the Mughal court, silk isn't merely fabric, it's a narrative steeped in culture, geography, and even a touch of espionage. The origin of the fabric is as critically analyzed as the final product itself, with some spun in the distant lands of China, while others arrive luxuriously dyed from Persian shores. Each thread tells 1,000 tales that stretch far beyond its individual fiber. One might say the greatest storytellers of the court aren't the poets, but the tailors who stitch these woven tales into masterpieces that adorn the bodies of nobles. While you're deep in contemplation, a court tailor approaches, eyes scanning you as if appraising a canvas. You're hurried into a private chamber, a place where chosen garments are bespoke and tailored to perfection, an early precursor to the haute couture salons of Paris. He measures your posture, your demeanor, and even slips in questions about your favorite colors, all under the guise of ensuring the fit that cries elegance without sounding like a scream. As you brace yourself, needles whirl and scissors snip, you're treated to a fringe tidbit, literally. Did you know that in some places, wearing too much gold was frowned upon, thought to burden the soul? A bit like wearing heavy boots in a swimming pool. So here, less is unexpectedly more, unless you're competing for the spotlight with the glitteringly ostentatious peacock throne. Some claim the Mughal sartorial splendor was rooted in a desire to emulate celestial bodies. The robes, intricate with pearl-like patterns and golden suns, perhaps served as reminders to courtiers that their influence remained earthbound, while real enlightenment hovered just beyond. Yet, some scholars argue the kaleidoscopic clothing played a more subversive role, camouflage in a political arena where blending into the background could preserve one's head upon one's shoulders far longer than standing out. You find yourself almost lost in the sartorial choices, the hardship of royal wardrobe dilemmas from silk to satin, brocade to chiffon. You humorously consider the benefits of a simple uniform, a one-size-fits-all approach to court garments. But alas, the court is about flair, about imposing yourself visually before uttering the faintest whisper of diplomacy. Just then, you're guided back to the bustling heart of the court, now clad in a harmonious ensemble that promises neither to offend nor overshadow. A rich maroon with subtle gold filigree accents, befitting the aura of prestige but without enough gleam to warrant an impromptu robbery. With every adjustment made with flawless precision, you feel a unity with the very threads that wrap around you, the guards to your posture, the heralds of your intentions. As you mingle, the tapestry of the court becomes as layered and intricate as your garments. It's a space designed with care, where optic and textile illusions play and blend to create an environment that is both welcoming and intimidating. In this realm of power, where every weave has a voice and every voice is a thread, you're not merely dressed, you are a living tapestry, a complex array of hues, ready to navigate the maze-like politics that define the grand Mughal courtliness. Thinking back to modern-day fashion shows, you chuckle a bit at the thought that somewhere at this very moment, an influencer is donning an outfit worth a fraction of the collective silk that clads this court. You ponder if they too long for a garb that narrates stories and holds fragments of lands less traveled. Or perhaps, just perhaps, they dream of a day where the hardest choice is deciding how much shimmer is too much before blending into the mundane. Standing there amidst luxury incarnate, you appreciate not only the sensory delights but also the silent dialogue spoken through color and form. A nod here and a glance there, a ballet of silken interactions that teaches you that, in this world of opulence, the stories told by threads can sometimes speak louder than any words ever could. Yes, really, feel free to wander, or should I say, get gloriously lost, in the sprawling maze that is a Mughal palace. Let's face it, these palaces are the kind of places where you might need a personal GPS system just to find the nearest bathroom. The architecture is designed not only to impress but also to bewilder. Imagine an endless array of courtyards, echoing halls, and intricately carved archways that lead to who knows where. These design choices were less about convenience and more about leaving intruders, or perhaps even invited guests, floundering like fish out of water. Now, historians still argue whether the dizzying complexity of these palaces was an act of sheer architectural brilliance or a masterstroke of calculated paranoia. Either way, you can be sure of one thing: taking a wrong turn may well lead you straight into the private quarters of an annoyed noble, who will likely not appreciate being mistaken for a tour guide. As you wander deeper, prepare for a sensory overload. The walls aren't just walls, they're stories whispered through tales of love, valor, and betrayal, captured in exquisite frescoes and ornate lattice work. Think of it as medieval Instagram with a dash of movie trailer drama, always giving you just enough to keep you intrigued, yet never quite the full story. And if you're lucky, or incredibly unlucky, you might stumble upon one of the secret passageways rumored to lurk behind some of these murals. Oh, the thrill of mystery and the smell of, well, the distinct lack of modern plumbing. These secret doors were the escape routes for some and clandestine entryways for others. They could quickly turn court life into a lively game of whodunit. Ever heard that story about an emperor sneaking off to meet his paramour? In the Mughal court, the truth was sometimes just a hidden doorway away. Though, let's get real for a second, whispering sweet nothings through a damp, echoey passage probably didn't do much for the romance factor. One mainstream historical fact that comes in handy: many Mughal structures, including the legendary Lal Killa or Red Fort, were designed by the renowned architect Ustad Ahmad Lahori, whose pen also sketched the outlines of the Taj Mahal himself. His penchant for symmetry and grace would make any perfectionist swoon, but the sheer scale of these constructions suggests someone whose spatial awareness probably defies normal human capability, much like trying to pack your suitcase on the way home from vacation. But design wasn't just about aesthetics or military strategy. The palaces also served as literal cool-down zones. They integrated ingenious cooling technologies, like carefully constructed water channels and airy chambers designed to suit the soul as well as the sweaty brow. Imagine walking through a hallway where a gentle breeze strokes your cheeks thanks to water trickling through marble paths, providing a bit of relief from the scorching heat, an ancient air conditioning system that's more silent than your modern AC unit at 3 a.m. While exploring, you might wish to ponder over a quirky tidbit: some walls may have once been opened with the words or touch of those in the know. A kind of open sesame situation, except you're gently hoping you remember the right phrase, and haven't accidentally burst into someone's private yoga session. Also, maintaining the map of this labyrinth in your mind as you navigate it? Perfect training for anyone wanting to level up at memory games or pranks involving the art of hide and seek. Sifting through these spaces of wonder, you might wonder about King Solomon's mines, or at least think about where you last put your car keys. Let's not disparage the humble corridor, though. It's often where the humdrum happens, the dismissive scoff, a secret plan whispered, a giggle at someone else's expense. It's where history breathes life into brick and stone, turning the simplest passage into an avenue of intrigue and unsolved riddles. Of course, exploring these palaces without a chaperone or map requires the agility of an Olympic gymnast and the memory of an elephant. Having a knack for comedic timing wouldn't hurt either, just in case you need to laugh your way out of a misstep or two. After all, nothing transcends social gaffes quite as well as humor, except maybe inventing a time machine to prevent them in the first place. Unfortunately, Mughal technology, as impressive as it was, hasn't left us that particular blueprint. So, as you nod off into a peaceful dream about secret passages and regal glories past, take comfort in knowing that this journey through the Mughal palace labyrinth is a delightful dance between the elegant, the esoteric, and the ever so slightly eccentric. Just be sure to remember your way back to the entrance, lest you become another piece of palace lore for future adventurers to decipher. In the bustling heart of the Mughal court, you quickly realize that this world is a well-choreographed dance, not just an opulent display. The tapestried hallways echo with a medley of languages, Persian, Turkish, and a sprinkle of the local Hindustani, blending into a symphony that tells tales of alliances, whispers of treason, and praises of imperial benevolence. The Mughal hierarchy stretches before you like a vast, unwritten scroll or one of those family trees everyone seems to have, yet no one fully understands. At the top, of course, is the Emperor, Shah Jahan, the sun in this elaborate solar system. His radiance and authority cast a shadow under which many smaller stars, his sons, advisors, and favorite nobles, vie for their own moments in the cosmic spotlight. No small feat considering you're also trying to avoid the occasional black hole of court politics. You quickly deduce that here, everything is about who stands where, both literally and metaphorically. The Mughal hierarchy is a complex social Rubik's Cube, one that requires more than a casual sleight of hand to solve. Every movement has meaning. The emperor's greatest ministers, known as the Asaf Khan, often wield more influence than the princes themselves. Given their sway, you might liken them to that one uncle who seems to know more family secrets than is probably healthy. Yet, for every grand official, there's a small army of clerks and scribes, each responsible for ensuring that the empire runs as smoothly as the silk flowing from the imperial looms. Historians still argue whether this hierarchy provided stability or inevitably led to its fragmentation. But as you covertly observe from your corner, it's clear that chaos lies only a misplaced word or poorly executed bow away. Speaking of bows, those whom the emperor honors with his gaze must offer deeply respectful zamin bows, a part kiss, part prostration that leaves you wondering if chiropractors' offices exploited the gig economy back then. Beyond the ministers, the hierarchy extends into a labyrinth of positions, each with its obscure responsibilities and just as obscure privileges. There are mirzas, not your friendly neighborhood guys but male descendants of the royal family, constantly balancing on the tightrope of power and disfavor. Below them swirl a multitude of nobles and scholars, the umara and ulama, the glittering gems and watchful eyes, respectively, of the court. Now, if you thought the intricate dynamics were restricted to the royal family, think again. Women, particularly in the zenana, the women's quarters, weave their own intricate webs of influence, often steering the flow of power through whispered counsel and matrimonial strategies. Nur Jahan, the emperor's stepmother-in-law and an unparalleled force of nature herself, had a significant say in matters of the state, proving that the adage behind every great man, "There's a woman rolling her eyes," held water even centuries ago. There's a peculiar, albeit lesser-known tidbit amidst the hierarchy's labyrinthine pathways. The position of the court dwarf, small in stature, yet significant in influence. Abbas, one such figure, had a unique blend of humor and sharp wit, leveraging his unusual position to become both entertainer and unofficial advisor, proving that in this courtly world, sometimes standing out meant standing slightly lower but holding your head higher. Observe closely and you will notice that Mughal court life thrives on an exchange system beyond rank. It's rife with tokens of patronage, grants of lands known as jaggers, honorary titles like Khan or Mirza heralded with the pomp of a teenage YouTube apology video. Receiving these honors boosts one's clan's prestige and slightly swells the recipient's head, but they're not without strings. Accepting a title often means providing military service or court attendance. Imagine getting a shiny, new credit card with some very complicated terms and conditions. The court operates akin to one massive, slightly dysfunctional workplace, where watercooler gossip takes the form of poetic couplets whispered over jasmine tea, and career advancement might just hinge on your ability to compose both a flattering satire to woo the emperor and, simultaneously, your own exit strategy should your quip miss its mark. In totality, you find this world of swirling silks and tantalizing whispers is a delicate ecosystem, each individual part interdependent on another. One uncalculated move, a misaddressed comment, perhaps, or the betrayal of a favorite court poet, and you could find yourself abruptly translated from influential courtier to reputable nobody. While it's easy to imagine these courts as simply glamorous stages for historical soap operas, remember that they govern vast tracts of South Asia, an empire whose control over varied geographies and cultures depended on these very hierarchies. This delicate balance of power and its attendant etiquette harnessed the ambition of thousands, all channeling their energy towards sustaining, or at times destabilizing, the empire. And so here you are, amidst layers of silk and intrigue, pondering the complex choreography required to sustain your standing in this world. Dare you rise to the dance, or do you ascribe to a more philosophical recline and simply enjoy the show? Either way, remember, in the courtly life of the Mughals, whether riding waves of success or surviving its capricious ebbs, maintaining grace under pressure wasn't just an ideal, it was an art form worth mastering. As you lean back against the cool marble of the column observing this motley crew, you're aware of both the allure and danger inherent in the Mughal hierarchy. It is, at once, both a dizzying waltz and an intricate web, a stage where each actor must know their lines perfectly lest they be written out of the narrative altogether. You quietly slip into the fabric of life at the Mughal court, a place where even a silent nod or a misplaced glance could set the complex web of courtly life into motion, or worse, into chaos. The world of courtly manners is awash with unspoken rules, as intricate as the embroidery on one of the emperor's finest tapestries. Each flick of a fan, each bow, every word carries weight. You must speak poetry while walking a tightrope. After all, isn't eloquence just diplomacy in a prettier gown? Picture yourself surrounded by courtiers, their colorful garbs swirling like a kaleidoscope of diplomacy. Every move is measured, designed to signal respect or superiority, depending on the occasion. Lean in gently, not too forward, lest you encroach onto someone's invisible personal boundary, a historical minefield you didn't study for. In this arena, survival leans heavily on observation. Like a social chameleon, you absorb the finer subtleties of another's posture, tone, and gaze, hoping your own presence translates as cultured rather than clumsy. In case you're wondering, the art of being heard without speaking too loudly flourished here. Whispered counsel carried more weight than a loud proclamation. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle where a piece barely out of place could imply diplomatic disaster. And we're not dealing with your average jigsaw, the pieces might be silver, or spun silk, scenes from long-lost battles, or yes, even intricate designs of Emperor Akbar's favorite elephant. Historians still argue whether the infamous silent nod to a fellow courtier was a sign of mutual understanding or merely a response to the draft in the hall. These silent codes permeate every conversation, a delicate dance choreographed with centuries of tradition. But not every pause carries deep meaning. Sometimes, someone just forgot their line in this never-ending play. The Mughals, it seems, mastered the craft of turning mundane interactions into an art form, a sight best compared to modern email etiquette but with the added risk of public embarrassment. However, some may argue that a swift delete button would have saved worlds of trouble. Just imagine if Shah Jahan could have simply unfriended a political opponent. The court's atmosphere was one where the ability to listen astutely could earn one an unseen throne more valuable than the one bejeweled with gemstones. Of course, the courtly decorum extended beyond human interaction. Imagine the challenge of interpreting petulant peacocks strutting about the gardens, their feathered displays either a reflection of your rising favor or, absurdly, foreshadowing an economic downturn. Did you know that sometimes court poets inscribed hidden meanings onto leaves, sending subtle messages through the emperor's private gardens? Receiving such botanical insight was an honor, albeit a foliage-centric one. The most prized skill, however, might be invisibility cloaked in elegance, staying out of scandals while remaining relevant. For a woman at court, this meant mastering the art of conversation, dancing delicately between strength and softness. For men, it often involved feigned humility mixed with bragging, an art still appreciated today at family reunions. Yet, the place wasn't devoid of humor. There were court jesters. After all, they played a critical role in breaking tension, their jests a refuge from the rigid world of etiquette. Allowed certain breaches of decorum, these talented individuals knew the value of laughter in the stifling heat of politics. They could tickle ribs while treading the fine line between boldness and blasphemy, a truly unenviable task that somehow echoes well-choreographed stand-up comedy. From a distance, you notice a courtier employing the classic technique of appearing engrossed without truly listening, a trick so universal it must predate this grandeur. Those wise enough ensured they were forever nodding, maintaining an expression of peculiar thoughtfulness. This not only showed that they considered your words with genuine interest but allowed them the sly ability to daydream about their next meal, especially if it involved an overly ripe mango, a favored fruit with a taste for drama, often causing social disputes when served out of turn. Equally important as the art of pretending to listen, was the mastery of timing, not just in speech but in any gesture or reaction. A chuckle an octave too high or an applause too soon could pivot you into the quicksand of unwanted attention. This court relied heavily on timing. Known tales describe whispers deftly timed to the sound of far-off conch shells, timing that kept poets in positions of favor and some courtiers in permanent timeout. Then, of course, come the quizzical scholars who spend years assessing if accidental stumbles leading to lavish apologies shifted the court's underlying power dynamics or were merely a consequence of slippery marble floors. Each misstep could launch a new dynasty, or at least a fresh series of gossip. But oh, what an opera it was! Here, silence could sing, a smile could stab, and a carefully placed pause could be more poignant than the canons of Agra. Navigating this symphony required you to possess the agility of a dancer, the intellect of a philosopher, and perhaps the knack for dramatic irony like that of Shakespeare himself. As you continue your day at court, bear in mind that your first carefully suppressed sneeze might be seen as either a slight to the throne or, if you're lucky, an opportunity to showcase an apology of such exquisite breadth that poets will pen its praises for centuries. Ah, the Mughal court! Where silence truly was golden, much like everything else in sight. In the dimly lit chamber, the hum of softly spoken words and the gentle strumming of a sitar beckon you to join the intimate gathering within. Welcome to the salon, where the cultural heartbeat of the Mughal court truly pulses. Here, poets unfurl scrolls of lush Persian verse, each syllable as meticulously crafted as the silk kaftans draping their forms. Musicians harmonize in delicate symphony, plucking strings and coaxing haunting melodies from their instruments, embedding notes into the very air. This tableau of intellectual and artistic exchange paints a vivid picture of the creative opulence underpinning the court's grandeur. As you settle into the ambience, you might notice the finely dressed courtiers leaning in a touch too closely, their whispers weaving through the room like serpentine melodies. It's not all about art and poetry, you see. Beneath the veil of cultured civility lies a warren of intrigue and subtle machinations. Picture the scene: a poet presents his new ghazal to appreciative applause, but the true exchange unfolds in the sotto voce conversations rustling like silk fans in the background. Here, alliances are forged, secrets are traded, and rivalries simmer beneath calm exteriors. Historians still argue whether the salon's primary purpose was genuine cultural enrichment or a cleverly disguised political arena. Some assert it was an opulent distraction from the harsher realities of empire management, while others claim it was the real epicenter of power, where charm and sharpness of wit could sometimes outmaneuver brute force. Regardless of its intended function, this sanctuary of soft velvet and flickering lantern light is where you learn to navigate courtly life with all its nuances. One wonders if the echoes of court jesters' repartees, which might rival today's sharpest stand-up routines, drift like echoes in your thoughts. After all, who would refract the solemnity of the court with a perfectly timed quip about a minister's apparent fondness for peacock feathers, always strutting, never flying? A well-placed jest could be your saving grace or your swift undoing, depending on whether or not the emperor happened to find humor in understatement that day. Meanwhile, the salon's patrons are more than just passive attendees, they are participants in a high-stakes game of wit and charm. Each person's body language, from a casually cocked eyebrow to a delicately executed bow, is noted and interpreted, with meanings that often stretch far beyond the obvious. Even the choice of poetic metaphor or particular raga could be a veiled commentary on current affairs, a skillful maneuver resembling a modern-day subtweet but without the safety of digital anonymity. It is said that the emperor himself was a connoisseur of arts, often judging performances with a discerning eye. Yet, there are tales, likely apocryphal, of an emperor falling prey to the charms of a particularly sly lyricist, whose clever compositions were more about cleverly concealed political barbs than the proclaimed wonders of spring or the pangs of unrequited love. Such stories, while entertaining, also underline the salon's dual role as both a center of culture and a stage for subtle political theater. In this vibrant atmosphere, it's not uncommon to witness some friction between the traditionalists, holding fast to the styles and languages of their forebears, and the avant-garde, who push the boundaries of artistic expression. There are arguments over the merits of introducing local influences into the Persian-dominated art forms, a debate that continues to inspire heated discussions among historians today. Was this fusion evidence of a vibrant cultural renaissance, or did it signify a worrying departure from tried-and-true traditions? If you lean closely, you might hear whispers about one court musician who dared to incorporate non-traditional instruments into his compositions, resulting in both disdain and fervent admiration. A gamble, no doubt, akin to showing up at a Victorian ball in platform shoes, the impact entirely unpredictable. Yet for all the volatility of artistic fortunes, the salon pulses with an underlying appreciation for beauty and intellect, glimpsing a softer focus amidst the often ruthless court life. A place where, even if briefly, the demands of heritage and empire find a pause in the luscious cadence of music, the lilt of rhyme, and the unspoken conversations weaving through the room. Whether you find yourself inspired by the creativity on display or bemused by the never-ending game of wits, understanding these salons provides crucial insight into why surviving here demands not only keen observation but the wisdom to know when to listen, when to speak, and when maybe, just maybe, to join in with a whispered quip of your own. And as you might imagine, the art of gracefully avoiding being caught in the crossfire of wordplay and political banter would serve you well in staying afloat amongst the splendor and the peril that sweep through the Mughal court like incense smoke. So, as you venture deeper into this world of art and whispers, consider the implications of each laugh, each nod, and each whispered aside. These are the moments that, while outwardly serene, carry the weight of the court's silent undercurrents. It makes you wonder, would the creativity thrive as brilliantly if the stakes weren't quite so high? The very tension that imbues these salons with sharp eyes and sharper tongues might just be the same spark that fuels the torrent of artistic brilliance, ensuring that each note, whether musical or metaphorical, resonates far beyond the walls of this storied palace. You find yourself immersed in the unfolding splendor of the Mughal court, where time isn't just passing, it's ceremoniously parading through an imperial schedule. The Emperor's Day is a meticulously crafted symphony of rituals and ceremonies, each note chosen to convey authority, majesty, and a smidge of "don't you dare disrupt this or else." It all begins before sunrise, which for you might seem like an ungodly hour, but here it signifies discipline and divine favor. As the first light brushes against the intricate carvings of Agra, the Emperor engages in his morning prayers. This spiritual ceremony might recall peaceful sunrise yoga for today's modern soul, though significantly more solemn and steeped in power dynamics. You see, participating or even observing requires a deep understanding of the gravity bestowed with each gesture and word. The Emperor's devotions are not merely personal moments but rather public statements of piety and divine right to rule. After the spiritual commencement, the Emperor moves to the public audience hall for the Jaroka Darshan. This ritual involves a ceremonial appearance where the Emperor reveals himself to the populace. Imagine a royal peekaboo with substantially more pomp and circumstance. Through the sophisticated wooden lattices of his balcony, he presents an image designed to awe and assure, add a dash of who runs the world? Me, and you're just about there. Historians still argue whether the Jaroka Darshan was a purely religious act or a brilliantly disguised political strategy to reinforce the emperor's indispensable presence in everyday life. Whatever the case, it becomes clear that portraying an infallible image is as crucial as the governance itself. One might chuckle thinking of it as an early version of a social media persona, cultivated with much fewer filters but just as much finesse. Next up is the royal breakfast, carefully planned in accordance with his celestial energies, and if that sounds like astrology, that's because it kind of is. Of course, it's not just any breakfast. Each bite carries significance, and disruptively picking the wrong date to serve mangoes might lead to diplomatic catastrophes. Yes, it's literally a fruit salad charged with political gravitas. After breakfast, the emperor attends to political affairs, issuing commands and hearing grievances. To modern ears, it sounds a bit like sitting in endless board of directors meetings. Yet, here, the stakes are exponentially higher. An emperor's decision echoes through the kingdom like a dominant tweet that could change the world order, though undeniably more eloquent. Around midday, it's time for a change of pace. The emperor retreats to his private chambers for a brief respite from the day's obligations. Some suggest a power nap was involved, others believe he consulted with astrologers and advisors. This time serves not only for rest but for crucial, albeit whispered, conversations that possibly influence the empire far beyond what's publicly decreed. The afternoons bring ceremonial feasts and a chance to engage with art and culture, vital to reinforcing the empire's image as a beacon of sophistication. Here you realize that mastering juggling between culinary delight and diplomatic poise is key. Heaven forbid a faux pas as your incorrectly timed sip of sherbet brings about whispers from those distrusting watchful eyes. A quirky, yet surprisingly pivotal, component of the day is pigeon flying, a passion shared by several Mughal emperors, particularly Akbar. In a world yet to know anything as enthralling as Netflix, pigeon competitions not only amused but served as subtle metaphors for the empire, flight, freedom, and the skies under control. Closing in on dusk, the emperor participates in a final bout of discussions with his closely knit advisors. Strategic conversations fill the halls, proof that governance is indeed an all-consuming task. The day winds down with another prayer session, a reflection both of faith and fatigue, or as we'd call it now, a bedtime routine on steroids. Far removed from the daily hustle, historians still debate the impacts of such an intensely scheduled life on the emperor himself. Was he a player of divine chess constantly orchestrating moves, or simply moved by the necessity to conform to the demanding ritualistic metaphor of eternal sun and empire? As you find yourself pondering these questions, the day's imagery fades, leaving a lingering awe at the grandeur and gravity that mark each tick of the Mughal clock. The day has shown that existing, even if just for a moment, in the emperor's daily cycle means writing a rhythm of ritual and rank that deftly balances both mundane and monumental. It is a masterclass in protocol, where staying awake through a potentially boring matter doesn't just make you cultured, it keeps you alive. How's that for making history anyone's cup of afternoon tea? You find yourself ushered into a grand room where the air is thick with the scents of saffron, cardamom, and rosewater. As you take a deep breath, a small smile appears on your face as you note the familiar aroma of a dish reminiscent of that modern frothy latte, courtesy of some ancestral Mughal whimsy with milk and spices. Here, you're about to engage in the grand tradition of dining, Mughal style. Surrounded by sumptuous tapestries and golden platters, this experience is no mere meal, it's an art form with the intent to dazzle and delight every sense. The sight alone is something to behold. Tables groan under the weight of exquisite foods, each with vibrant colors and displays that might make a master painter dip their brush in jealousy. Dishes like biryani, kebabs, and naan are crafted with such flair that you'd swear they were woven from the very threads of flavor. Historians still argue whether the Mughals perfected such culinary extravagance to pacify picky noble palates or simply to flaunt their own grandeur. In truth, it's likely a delightful combination. Now, here's a quirky tidbit. One of those glittering bowls you see is filled with something remarkably close to what you'd call edible gold. Yes, gold leaf, strewn on dishes to mark unimaginable opulence, because nothing screams wealth like literally eating money, right? And just when you think you've wrapped your head around eating gold, you learn it might have been appreciated for its supposed health benefits. Imagine adding recommended by your Mughal physician to that practice today. As you settle among the guests, your senses are flooded not just by the aroma and sight but also by the rich soundscape encapsulating the event. A musician plucks melodious notes on a sitar, swirling through the air like sweet, invisible smoke. Each measure adds to an ambience that's as meticulously crafted as the jeweled daggers worn by some of your more pointedly stylish fellow diners. However, engaging in a feast at the Mughal court requires navigating more than just flavors. You must dance around etiquette as though dodging the peacock's tail, not least among them being the unspoken rules of picking the correct use of your right hand, for the left is reserved for, shall we say, less savory duties. Therefore, your right becomes the utensil of choice, and while handling food with fingers might remind you of a casual Friday night at home with takeaway, here it's an exercise in elegance. With countless courts from every land adopting varied dining mores, historians ponder how Mughal etiquettes influenced, or diverged from, contemporaneous civilizations around them. One tale claims that the Emperor Akbar invented a sequence of napkin folding rituals so intricate they became an art form all their own. While you won't need to fold origami like napkins today, you quickly learn that dining etiquette can determine your social fate, no pressure. Observing those around you, you notice the unspoken but intense rivalries between courtiers simmering beneath polite conversation. Over there, a noble exquisitely praises a dish with a hint of deeper rivalry masked as flattery, while another uses the opportunity to pass veiled barbs in between delighted inquiries about recipes. You quickly realize the table isn't just for dining, it's also a chessboard for complex social maneuverings. And yet, While the food beguiles your taste buds and the repartee sharpens your wit, a subtle awareness warns you not to become too immersed. For every morsel savored might carry a flavor of political advancement or personal gain, and every polite smile could weave another thread in the court's intricate web. Before long, a burst of peacock feathers signals the arrival of sweet delicacies, beckoning you to dive into their luscious layers of sweetness, dripping with honey and nuts. These treats wrap around your consciousness like a culinary lullaby. Before they completely take over, you quietly consider that historians consistently debate the exact recipes and spices used in these delectable sweets. Somehow, that soft uncertainty among the academic elite just adds another delightful layer to your dreamy dessert satisfaction. As the feast wanes and you wrestle with the sense of overload, a feeling part food coma, part political awareness hangover, you glance around, acutely aware of both the magnificent heritage and the ephemeral alliances floating in the savory air. Such are the rules at the Mughal table, where every feast provides nourishment for both the body and the tangled corridors of power. Remember, those in the Mughal court rarely eat merely to satisfy hunger, they dine to make history. Such experiences make for a day spent wisely, though truthfully, you might need a nap after all this rich indulgence. In that way, some things across ages really never change. While the banquets have left your senses swirling in a haze of culinary and diplomatic complexity, it's time now to step into the regal aura of the peacock throne. Ah yes, the very seat that Shah Jahan, the emperor known for commissioning the Taj Mahal, designed as the jewel-encrusted centerpiece of his extravagant court. You approach it cautiously, mindful of every head nodding in reverence and every eye that veils intrigue. The throne itself is perched majestically, standing as an audacious symbol of authority and opulence. Imagine a seat so lavish that it seems more the stuff of fables than of human craftsmanship. Crafted from solid gold and with ornamental legs resembling the paws of fierce lions, its splendor is undeniable. The backrest arches like a peacock, its tail fanning out to display sapphires, emeralds, and rubies, each more illustrious than the last. You almost expect the peacock motif to come alive, flutter and let out a majestic call. But alas, no animated peacocks here, just a stone-cold grandeur of earthly materials that exude heavenly charm. The most captivating feature of the throne is, of course, the legendary Kohinoor diamond, said to possess an almost hypnotic twinkle that could entrance even the most jaded of courtiers. It's a stone with history so tumultuous it's practically got Hollywood A-lister status. Historians still argue whether its original home was in India or if it's had a few cameo roles in various neighboring territories before finally landing here. Regardless, in this court, it acts as the crown jewel, commanding the room's attention much like a celebrity at a red carpet event, albeit with a little less drama. The peacock throne isn't even a static object, it serves as the epicenter of complex dynamics that could rival any modern governmental power hub. Imagine a web of thrones, if you will, where the seat is as much about who sits on it as the granite and gold reality itself. The emperor dominates the court from this position, his proclamations flowing like ripples across a tranquil lake, impacting everyone from the highest-ranking noble to the smallest pigeon scuttling about in the courtyard. And you thought sitting in the fancy office chair during Zoom meetings conferred power. Perhaps most humorously, the throne is said to be host to enough political theatrics to rival Shakespearean drama. Every gem might as well symbolize a failed alliance, a successful treaty, or the occasional betrayal, none of which are notated in any ledger but are well remembered in the repositories of courtly gossip. You overhear whispered conversations laden with subtle tensions and grandiose plans, each one perceptibly itching to topple or at least wobble the dominion of whoever's draped in its splendid fabric. Then there's the curious yet frequently overlooked practice of arranging an elaborate canopy overhead, festooned with peacock feathers. While your modern senses might marvel at the extra effort needed to keep the decorative plumage dust-free, back then it was par for the course, a literal crowning glory meant to add depth to the metaphor of imperial superiority. Talk about the original air conditioners, they served as much for status elevation as for any plausible shade they might offer. But let's veer into the less charted territories of this elaborate seat of power, the quirky bits the average courtier might overlook. Some chronicles suggest hidden compartments within the throne itself, possibly used for securing secret documents or storing emergency snack supplies. Imagine sliding open a gold-encrusted panel to reveal a stash of almond-filled samosas. An emperor's arsenal must be well-rounded after all. Although, the evidence for underground samosa storage is admittedly scant, it's one of those tales that adds mystique to the already marvelous seat. Examining the throne's political implications in today's landscape isn't without its debates. Scholars argue over the throne's exact role in Mughal diplomacy. Was it merely ornamental, a symbol of raw power, or both? Maybe Shah Jahan, given his architectural prowess, saw it as an extension of his vision for administrative elegance. Whatever its true purpose, there's little question that it remains a vivid emblem of Mughal opulence and ambiguity, a subject scholars and casual admirers alike continue to explore. And it is here, before this gem-laden opulence, that you fully grasp why lasting a single day in such a court would be as monumental a feat as any palace could boast. To manage being heard amid the illustrious clangor of intrigue, elegance, and protocol without unraveling into a jittery mess is quite the task, one perhaps easier written about than accomplished. Stepping away with the glitter of the peacock throne still imprinted on your weary eyelids, you realize that navigating this world demands the finesse of a dancer and the strategic mastery of a savvy game player. And so, as twilight begins to cast long shadows through the intricately carved lattices of the palace and the bustling court resigns to quieter echoes, you ease away from the throne's splendor. You're left pondering what the next chapter of Mughal drama might unfurl for those who dare to sit, and not just on any seat, but on this throne, in this very heart of ancient confluence and contention. Would they simply recline, laden with the weight of lineage and responsibility? Or would they take to the stage like actors in a grand play, wearing their power like an elaborate costume of silk threads interwoven with human tales? As you find yourself weaving through the lavish chaos of the Mughal court, you soon realize that social grace here is more than just a nicety, it's a survival skill. Picture it as a complex game of chess, except every piece is alive, every move a dance, and each wrong step has the emotional delicacy of a lead balloon. You'll need a keen sense of observation and an even keener sense of humor to navigate these turbulent waters. The walls of the court buzz with the gentle hum of whispered conversations, some so clandestine they might as well be held under cloaks. There is an art to these hushed tones, mastering it could be the key to unlocking the court's secrets. As you lean closer to catch a word or two, you might overhear something about another courtier's unfortunate fashion faux pas, something akin to wearing socks with sandals but on a much grander and silkier scale. Behind each silk-draped curtain or ornate archway lies a world of alliances as delicate as a lace hem and rivalries as sharp as a tailor's needle. Imagine if soap operas had a baby with tactical war strategies. That's your average day in Mughal politics. Friends can become foes in the time it takes to sip a perfectly brewed cup of chai, especially when familial pride and ancient vendettas come into play. Speaking of tea, did we mention that it's also a handy metaphor to describe the kind of gossip that can keep the court in a state of perpetual melodrama? Historians still argue whether the Mughal approach to political alliances was more about strategic marriages or sheer charisma. Either way, you might find similarities with that tricky second cousin who always seems to avoid the family game of Monopoly, fearing property disputes. It was a delicate balance of power, influenced by bloodlines, whispered promises, and subtle inclinations of favor, or disfavor, for that matter. The trials of courtly life made it evident that the ability to maneuver through these alliances was an art form all its own. Imagine being a juggler, except the balls you're juggling are ambitions, vendettas, and occasional secrets so juicy they could make a papaya blush. You must tread carefully in this intricate dance, for one misstep and the cascade of consequences might be irreversible, or worse, tedious to untangle. Every eye seems to be watching, their curiosity as visible as peacock feathers in the noonday sun. Courtiers seeking to rise in stature or merely to survive must hone their instincts for deceit as if they were playing a lifetime-long game of Guess Who, but where each character card features flamboyantly dressed individuals. Ironically, for all their public posturing and grandeur, many court intrigues revolved around such petty grievances they could rival modern-day parking disputes. Did you know that even a minor slip in etiquette, like neglecting to compliment a noble's favorite pet, a surprisingly common practice, or not paying the appropriate homage to one's superiors, could lead to extensive repercussions? Histories of the court suggest that power-obsessed nobles would record perceived slights with an enthusiasm worthy of a modern-day reality show contestant holding a grudge. Not that any would admit to binge-watching, of course. But why stop the complexities there when there's more tension brewing than in a tightly unscrewed wine jar? As you traverse through the artfully decorated courtyards, each arch and column dripping with history like an overripe mango, it becomes increasingly clear why outside observers viewed this world as particularly enigmatic and undeniably mesmerizing. The well-practiced facades, however, conceal a deeper labyrinth of conspiracy and kinship. It's fascinating to think that the court aesthetics alone could be, and often were, weaponized in these silent yet roaring battles for influence. The ornate tiles you stepped upon were not merely functional, they were status symbols, making the terrain underfoot as political as it was beautiful. Quirky fact: certain Mughal court members allegedly carried spices in their pockets to subtly bribe others or sway opinions. Imagine attempting that with oregano in the office, and you'll get the picture. Though their portability might not be in vogue today, the essential human desire to sway and persuade remains just as potent through the ages. And what of the emperor, the axis upon which this vibrant, volatile world turns? It was imperative to stay on the right side of royal favor, much like currying favor with your office's IT department to avoid digital doom. The emperor's nod or frown held the weight of countless fortunes, yet one must be cautious. Becoming too favored could kindle envy hotter than a Mughal roast. How else could one account for the quick rise and fall of many a court favorite who dared to dance too close to the sun? Their tales are scattered across history like leaves on a monsoon breeze, whose patterns we attempt to discern but often blend into myth and legend. As you observe these political webs with increasingly bleary eyes, you understand why the Mughals were often regarded as puppeteers extraordinaires, spinning narratives and shaping destinies with a flick of a wrist or a whispered command. Their empire was more than mere land and wealth, it was a living entity, constantly in flux, shaped by those daring enough, foolhardy, some might say, to embrace its shifting nature. And so, the dance of Mughal politics continues, a mesmerizing tableau of power, pretense, and pandemonium interwoven with a sheer magic that keeps historians, scholars, and casual enthusiasts like yourself perpetually intrigued. Would you last a day, or would you retreat to a quiet corner, praising the tales of audacity and ambition while stealing a moment's repose from the cacophony? Perhaps that's best left a mystery, wrapped up in its jewel-ensconced, silk-lined enigma. Imagine stepping beyond the ostentatious halls and public spectacles you've already traversed, and perhaps even growing a bit weary of, into the emperor's hidden domains. Behind the facade of grandeur and power, there lies an intricate web of private quarters and secretive lives, an area where only a select few are allowed. Here, whispers carry more weight than proclamations, and you have to wade delicately through curtains of secrecy like a spy in a suspense thriller, sans the tuxedo but very much with an invisible monocle of scrutiny. First, you navigate towards the emperor's harem, a place shrouded in both mystery and misunderstanding. It's not just some fate of decadence you might imagine from those overly dramatic historical novels. Oh no, this is a realm of politics, education, and arts. Women here wield both soft power and influence, though perhaps subtly. Among them, the Sayyid Begums, or noble consorts, ensure that they're adept in diplomacy, education, and the cunning art of listening, an essential skill when your survival may rely on interpreting the emperor's bedtime murmurs or a fellow consort's sigh. Historians still argue whether these chambers were indeed sites of significant political maneuvering or merely domestic spheres with the odd strategic pillow fight. You'd wander through corridors that lead to private gardens, where the emperor pens poetry and considers the beauty of a lush, manicured landscape as soothing as a therapist's couch. These gardens, accompanied by the perfumed breeze of blooming jasmines, are more than just lush spectacles, they are places of reflection, where decisions that twist the fate of an empire spring from an emperor's imagination as naturally as a squirrel eyes a nut. An amusing image perhaps, but one that captures the mundane turned monumental in these exquisite hideaways. Speaking of fragrance, imagine stumbling upon the emperor's opulent bathing area, literally a water-themed paradise meant to entice relaxation, complete with fountains and mosaics that describe both myth and recent military conquests. A place where luxurious oils, jasmine, rose, maybe even that odd crocodile dung sunscreen cousin from Egypt, perfume the very air. And yes, historians might squabble over whether the emperor preferred the oils over the dung, considering the latter's dubiously reputation-tested benefits. In these domains, confidentiality is the currency of survival. Keep your wits about you, because that's as necessary as the ability to hold one's breath underwater. Alliances form and dissolve faster than tea can be steeped, and often over a cup of chai with its heavenly mix of spices that tantalizes more senses than a magic show on a rain-soaked Friday. You could imagine ministers slipping into meetings with turbaned tutors, full of wisdom and possibly more gossip than wisdom can handle, and clandestine conversations about trade routes or, cheekily, who ate the last piece of halva without the emperor's permission. Among the emperor's closest advisors are the mystics and astrologers, cloaked in enigma and incantations. The court, you see, holds a fondness for consulting stars, though whether for their light or cosmic guidance is up for debate. Planets align, but so do ambitions and egos, a celestial mirror of court life. Picture yourself, accidentally wandering into a celestial consultation, trying not to snicker when the astrologer dramatically mentions Mercury's retrograde being particularly displeased by mismatched socks. The inner sanctum of the emperor, a meditative space adorned with symbols of power and personal victories, is where the emperor often retreats for reflection and strategy. Within these walls, an intimate relationship with ambition, vulnerability, and secrecy unfolds. Here, the emperor contemplates the personal burdens of leadership, perhaps with the melancholy understanding that a misaligned decision here might cascade into monumental consequences outside. The emperor's well-crafted facade of infallibility rests as a mask, vulnerable only in these private moments where the court's operatic overtures turn into a solo sonata. Amidst all this, servants and guards weave an invisible web of duty and service, each hoping to catch as little attention as possible while standing in perpetual anticipation of a call, an order, or even a mischievous court entertainer sneaking past them, though that last one might just be wishful pranking recollections. Your journey through these hidden domains is akin to a tightrope walk over a murky moat of courtly machination, where every step matters but not half as much as your balance and poise under tension. Remember, here where silence reigns supreme, your bearings are your unspoken words, and the glances exchanged are coded messages deciphered only by the truly initiated. In this labyrinth of secrecy and majesty, shrouded in both reverence and fear, you come to appreciate why such hidden domains embody the core enigma of an emperor's rule. They remind you of the delicate balance between public grandeur and private insecurity, a timeless human conflict shrouded in silks, spices, and perhaps just a dash of poetic license, garnished like the last note of a lullaby at the end of a long, wearisome night. So, as you retreat from these secret quarters, pondering the petals of intrigue and complexity unfurled before you, take a deep breath, let the echoes of whispered secrets lull you into contemplation, and hold tightly onto the thought that your lively adventure through the Mughal court offers but a singular glimpse into a past cloaked in charisma, courage, and secrecy. As you continue to traverse the labyrinthine corridors and majestic halls of the Mughal court, it becomes abruptly clear that this empire was not merely a hub of political intrigue and sumptuous feasts, it was also a beacon of innovation that left an indelible mark on history. Paris might have its fashion week, but Mughal India had centuries of savvy innovation woven into its very fabric, and you're about to experience the grandeur of this legacy firsthand. Picture yourself back then, strolling through an intricately carved archway, lined with delicate tendrils of pink stone interlaced with ivory, leading into a vibrant world buzzing with the hums of creation. In the distance, you see the spires and minarets of architectural wonders emerging from the horizon, the Taj Mahal being just one gem in this crowning array. Historians still argue whether the area surrounding the tomb was originally designed to glow under moonlight like a pearl reflected in a pool of midnight blue. The architectural prowess during the Mughal period fused Persian, Indian, and Islamic styles, creating something utterly unique, much like wearing socks with sandals, only far more visually appealing. Speaking of visuals, you would find yourself amidst artists and inventors dedicated to pushing the boundaries of their crafts. You may wonder, did these creators ever run out of ink made from squid, or pearls to crush into paints, or paper crafted from pulped flowers? These individuals, supported by nobles who valued art as an extension of their own power, often found ways to blend colors and details into works that nearly breathed on their own. One mainstream historical fact is that these artists were crucial in developing new techniques of miniature painting, rendering epic scenes on canvases no larger than your iPhone screen, but perhaps a smidge more culturally significant. And in an age where you couldn't just Google how to build a flying buttress, masonry in the Mughal era achieved near miraculous feats. They crafted soaring domes that became quintessential elements of Mughal monuments, and some scholars speculated about their algebraic prowess, as they seemed to manipulate geometry like true mathematicians. It raises a question still hot among historians: were the Mughals secretly hoarding Pythagorean text messages? Architecture wasn't the only domain of Mughal innovation. Science, too, saw flashes of brilliance reminiscent of today's Silicon Valley. Picture the empire hosting its own version of a TED Talk, minus the microphones and with more extravagant turbans. You could have stumbled upon astronomers peering through rudimentary, yet remarkably precise, observational devices, trying to interpret the starlit symphony above. They were bravely attempting to chart celestial bodies, no doubt wondering if Samsung Galaxy was a future prophecy instead of a smartphone line. And, dear listener, just imagine the cutting-edge discussions of that era. Herbal manuscripts were passed around like clandestine notes between schoolmates. Medicine in the Mughal court relied not just on conventional herbs and spices, but on an alchemical blend of influences from the surrounding civilizations, influences that may have included crocodile dung concoctions, though we'll leave that one to the braver adventurous souls willing to try unconventional skincare routines. The emperor's court was also a petri dish for ingenious agricultural innovations. While today we might automate farming with tractors and drones, scholars in the Mughal era toiled in the fields of botany, experimenting with crop rotation and water management systems. They cultivated bountiful gardens with cucumber varieties reportedly so long, they doubled as, well, let's just say they served as effective doorstops. These innovations ensured the empire thrived, defying the whims of nature, not unlike every chef's battle against the humble soufflé. And lest we overlook the Mughal court's penchant for fashion innovation, the attire blended traditional weaves with cutting-edge tailoring techniques. Those luxurious textiles you marveled at earlier? Mughals spun tales of silk interlaced with mythical threads, and their embroidery told stories or even served as a non-verbal social media post, minus the hashtags. So as you momentarily pause in a sun-dappled courtyard framed by marigolds, consider how the Mughals didn't just build an empire of stone and ceremony. They cultivated a world of innovation that danced as elegantly through time as a peacock across the palace gardens. You can only wonder, if such marvels were achieved in just a day, what innovations awaited tomorrow in this resplendent court suspended in the tapestry of history? Reflecting on those innovations, you recognize that the Mughals didn't just leave behind grand structures and sumptuous art pieces. They laid a foundation of progress and curiosity, weaving a cultural legacy that endured beyond the rise and fall of empires. A legacy that many, centuries hence, would come to admire and build upon, even as debates continued on how these astonishments first took seed. As you rest, perhaps, humming a tune from a past yet to be discovered, remember this journey in these moments within the Mughal court's embrace, a tour through the chronicles of not just history, but innovation on the grandest scale. As you glance around the Mughal court, it's hard not to notice the undercurrents of tension swirling beneath the surface like serpentine whispers, wrapping themselves around the towering pillars of regal power. The question of succession hovers omnipresent, shadowing the brilliantly decorated halls with tendrils of uncertainty. It's as though the air is charged with a palpable electricity, fueled by ambition, cunning, and familial bonds stretched to their breaking points. In this serpentine dance of power, everyone plays their part, like an elaborate game of royal musical chairs where the tunes are laced with danger, and your ears must stay keen if you wish to remain seated. Here, every glance, every nod can translate to a calculated maneuver in the greater chessboard of the empire. You find yourself pondering the distinct possibility of elaborate schemes and secret alliances sealed with nothing more than a veiled look or the subtle arch of a brow. In the Mughal court, the tug-of-war for succession is as spectacular as it is nerve-wracking, where heirs apparent must balance the delicate art of ambition with caution. Historians still argue whether the intricate dance around the Mughal throne was driven more by love of power or fear of vulnerability. Either way, it isn't just a battle of sheer force but one of intellect, a nuanced web of rivalries and covert agreements best understood if you're attuned to the empire's heartbeat. Among the most intriguing players in this grand game are the princes themselves, often siblings locked in silent but fierce contention, under the watchful eye of their father, the emperor. Family dinners are more thrilling than a soap opera, with polite conversation often underlined by a simmering competition. Imagine trying to pass the salt without wondering if it's been poisoned with treason or saffron. Perhaps both, for that double-edged kick. Oh, court life surely isn't for the faint of heart or the easily bored. Perhaps today's assembled courtiers are quietly speculating about the crown prince. Will his wisdom outshine his youthful impetuousness? And then there's the second brother, often cited as a dark horse, whose intelligence gleams like a blade carefully hidden within the folds of silk robes. The age-old question persists, will intellect triumph over charm, or is it the other way around? The bustling halls of the court also reveal an abundance of counselors and advisors, each with their own agendas. Some align themselves with the obvious choice, while others, more inclined to risk, whisper promises of alliance into willing ears. After all, the very corridors you navigate are riddled with the echoes of promises and betrayals, an auditory maze of sorts, making every step a calculated risk. And then there's the delicate role of the women in the zenana, or women's quarters, where influence isn't direct but rather braided into the everyday fabric of court politics. Imperial mothers and influential queens are known to wield power from behind a silk screen, swaying decisions with a mere suggestion whispered at the right moment. A quirky tidbit within the court tales involves tales of maternal management, where a mango pudding might just decide allegiances, true story or jest. Historians have been debating ever since. While you pause, absorbing the charged atmosphere, remember, the Mughal court's facade of serenity is a carefully constructed illusion. It is said that mastering the art of such duplicity earned more than a few courtiers their place in the annals of history. Consider it the ultimate survival of the wittiest, if you will. The stakes continue to mysteriously escalate whenever there's a public appearance or grand occasion. Such spectacles are full of symbolic gestures, where the position one occupies in a royal procession provides insight into their favor, or lack thereof. You can't help but notice the juxtaposition of venerable customs and the frenetic energy of ambition, coexisting in a tightly wound dance of power. A philosophical riddle sometimes floats around the court like an errant feather: is succession about who is best suited to lead, or who plays the game most effectively? There was surely no rotating, musical dais of fairness here, a customary twist to keep things lively. Yet for all the serious matters of statecraft, there's a curious spectacle that's become a fringe phenomenon at the court, a peculiar brawl among birds, said to be an emperor's delight. Picture yourself watching two brightly plumed peacocks embroiled in an elaborate dance much akin to the succession itself, beautiful, boastful, with victory often unpredictable till the final strut. Did anyone place bets? One must wonder if the emperor viewed it as merely amusing, or as some sort of cryptic metaphor for the human endeavors swirling about him. As you find yourself engaged in the magnetic pull of this theatrical culture, remember that survival here demands a blend of patience, ambition, and foresight. Careful, though, the power vacuum can pull you in quicker than you might think. Who knows? You might just end up playing the game despite yourself. Should you aspire to more stable surroundings, I hear the crocodile dung sunscreen guy across the street is looking for a new apprentice. Less glittering courtly intrigue, more swamps, but hey, a little sun protection has never hurt anyone. Except, perhaps, a few moguls who lost the skin game, but let's save that for another sleepy tale. And as the sun dips lower on the horizon, casting long shadows filled with whispered truths and hidden agreements, the court prepares to wind down another day in its ever-oscillating dance with destiny. The sun slinks beneath the horizon, casting its final embers over Agra, as the day's cacophony retreats into the approaching night. You find yourself standing at the edge of the bustling court, a veritable theater where intrigue and grandeur have melded together in a dizzying spectacle. You're left to ponder the enormity of it all, a court alive in pulsating splendor, as if each bead of perspiration on a courtesan's brow held a secret soliloquy. That spectacular blend of beauty and cunning, what a show, really. Let's take a step back, shall we? You've been whisked through the kaleidoscope of Mughal opulence, a symphony of silks, politics, and beautifully orchestrated chaos. Reflect on the fact that the very court you find overwhelming is historically pivotal, serving as both a temple of art and a battleground of power plays. Historians still argue whether the Mughal court was more culturally enriching or politically treacherous, as it wielded both artful eloquence and formidable stratagems. Imagine a tiger prowling through this atmosphere of calm, and yet, think of the mechanisms behind every grand tale. Remember the delight of the gossamer silks beneath your touch, each thread holding stories from lands far and wide, bringing coziness and a bit of cholesterol to the heart of the empire. Who knew a garment could comfort and confound to such virtues? Yet, here you stand, unscathed by the creative tumult of politics and societal dances. Some say the closer you get to the empires of yore, the more complex and labyrinthine they become. It's like stepping into an intriguing puzzle that historians continue to piece together, their whispers echoing through the annals of time. You slowly disconnect from the incessant whispering courtiers and artists weaving tales of revolution in harmony with exhibitions of their talents. After all, it is in these chambers that the seeds of innovation derived from convergence burst forth. But as the court falls silent and the last candle flickers out, an air of serenity cloaks the structures that have served as your theater for the day. A wisp of exotic incense wafts through the languorous atmosphere, reminding you of how Mughal scents were not just a sensory delight, but also a subtle art form within those walls. So recall, if you will, the face of the wickedly silk-spun banquet where flavors danced more variably than a peacock parading for attention. There, amidst the saffron and cardamom, you pondered the alliances and the dagger-laden smiles of those in positions of wily influence and cunning wit. And in a calm, cool moment of introspection, you glimpsed the distant specter of the great peacock throne, glittering with its famed jewels. Despite the beauty, you might wonder if the rulings from that ornate chair would rival the comedy sketches of late-night court intrigue. Isn't it amusing how a chair could host drama more convoluted than our modern TV series? Convinced or not, the throne held more secrets tucked into its intricate carving than the spine of 1,000 scrolls. In dancing twilight, with shadows stretching languidly under moonlight, the court becomes an enigma, a colossal chest of buried stories that invite both awe and reverence. Here, today, you are just a humble observer, a memory tag sewn into the rich tapestry of its history. Yet, as the peal of court fades to whispers, one can only reflect that, the purified spirits of silk, of an enigmatic political dance, and of perfumed decadence hover over the terraces, distilling tranquility that comes only after chaos has whispered its swan song. Here is where the audacious daily theater settles into the tranquil undercurrent of human contemplation. As lounging royals sway into dreams, pondering tomorrow's antics, the day's tapestry behind them woven, its golden fringe yet untouched by the gentle roll of time. And now, as you take one last, lingering look at the mesmerizing spectacle surrounding you, it's clear that surviving even a single day in the Mughal court could be likened to performing a flawless ballet. Every step, every gesture orchestrated towards an ever-present awareness that, like a summer storm, plans can change in a heartbeat. Yet, this is where the thrill resides, embracing the unpredictable choreography of a court teetering between grandeur and intrigue. Allow the twilight to invite a gentle retreat of your weary senses. Calm spreads through the corridors like a caring hand upon an overworried brow, lulling the daylight frenzy into a tranquil embrace. The city of Agra whispers promises of serene silences and dream-laden slumbers to the stars and moon above. You feel part of something vast and woven through with silken wonderment, familiar and yet otherworldly. Feel your breaths lengthen, mirroring the soft oblivion of night enveloping the resplendent city. Your reflections soften, grow understated like the lotus flower gracefully swaying in the gentle lull of time. Rest easy, listener. Let the wings of sleep lift you from your view over this bygone wonder of the world, to tender dreams wherein history, wrapped in twilight's quiet reflection, merges with the profound simplicity of peace.